Hello and welcome back to Aston Martin F1 Manager 2022 here in 2023, and for the third race this season, just a PSA, this is the first episode with the new 1.8 patch. The first two races of the season, whilst they have been released into the world, after that they were not recorded after the patch. So the first two races were on the old patch. This is the first time we're going to actually see how those things happen. Now the patch notes were lengthy, but in terms of actual details of what precisely they changed mechanics-wise, we're not fully certain yet. I mean, other people obviously had experience of it yet, but I haven't seen that experience. They have changed things to do with tyre wear, they changed things to do with cars moving out of the way in terms of lapping, but also side-by-side racing. So if you remember the instance in Monza where we got mugged off on points because Pierre Gasly yielded in a really weird spot and lost the, the DRS train as a result of that, hopefully things like that are now fixed, along with the tyre wear issues that we should have benefited from in Zandvoort, but didn't. So a couple of the big sticking points from last year's races, hopefully, now won't be as much of a problem. And of course, actually, there would have been more of a sticking point in one of the races this season as well, with Hamilton, Alonso, etc. were going biblically slower than they would have been due to their tyre wear. So I'm hoping it does model the lower end of the tyre wear better, but I'm also really hoping it models the high end of the tyre wear better as well, in the sense of when it's still got good tyres, because I do feel like that fresh tyre bonus is something that's particularly lacking as well. I could almost tolerate the kind of more steady straight line decline of tyres as long as it had that fresh tyre boost at the beginning, but it had neither. So if it has one or the other, I can sort of get on board with it, but because it had neither end of the spectrum of tyre wear, just one downwards straight line between tyre wear and pace, then that was the problem. However, we'll stop faffing around. We do have a design complete, and this could be the game changer. This is what the car looks like right now. 13th, 17th, 9th, and then everything else is basically 19th or 70th, so basically worst or second worst. Engine cooling is 16th, weirdly, at this stage of the season. Where somewhere one car has broken the split, so it takes 4 days to manufacture one, and we are 10 days away from the Grand Prix, so we will rush. Oh, we'll just rush 4. That costs 200 grand to do. It would be 1 million if we emergency 2 and then just built 2 normally, but if we rush 4, which will get there in time, that costs 600, so that'll be cheaper. Okay, we'll do that then. We'll just rush 4, because that'll get us 4 there in time. So we can't see the comparison just yet, just because we're a way off. But that also means we've got a new project opening. So we've got the underfloor coming in already. That's using, I want to say 6 of our engineers. So I'm not sure I'd like a new chassis. I might do side pods first. I did allocate my hours more towards the underfloor in the first point, so I would do the similar thing with the chassis, put the bigger gains on that. That hasn't changed anything. I'm actually intrigued to see what, because this has apparently got changed as well. Oh, it does still improve everything, but of course it makes things slower. So it would take 56 days to do that, but the next ATL period is going to be well after that. It makes marginal gains in the first place ever regardless, so 18th of May. I almost feel like just doing Intense to get the expertise, because we can rush it and get it there in 29 days. But we're going to do it on Intense to learn about the car. So Intense, because it only costs 420 grand to do this on Intense. The total cost of 630 grand to design, 4 engineers, 44 days, which will bring it in, alongside the underfloor. We could have timed that much better if we tried. They will arrive at the same time for Spain. Perfect timing, really, actually. I know there's Monaco shortly afterwards, but yeah. And we've got a question of regular vote. Now, this is on changes to the car. It's to do with low speed or high speed. We're bad in high speed, so we will vote for high speed downforce changes. And now, the day before the race, we can put on the new rear wing and see how that's actually affected the car as a whole. It's not changed a lot on that page. It doesn't look like it's changed a lot, but it has changed low speed to being on the better half of the grid in dirty air cornering as well as just regular cornering. I do notice that off the bat. And it has improved our low speed cornering in general to 5th on the grid. I can see acceleration we've moved up. I can see DRS top speed we've moved up. I think medium and high speed we've moved up 1 car effectively. The cooling we've not moved at all, but I think we basically moved up in the high and the medium by one car, and then in low speed we've moved up 2 again, even though that's not what we were focusing on with the rear wing. So we've effectively moved up on average an entire car on the grid with that new rear wing. So we are no longer the worst or second worst team in everything. We're now the 3rd worst or 2nd worst in most. Well, between like the 7th and 9th best team, basically, in most areas. But low speed, we are 3rd or 4th. So that's where we make our mark, basically. On the now unfortunately. Well, it's listed as a balanced circuit, but it was actually listed as a high-speed circuit. I see that might have changed. Fastest lap is the non-negotiable again. Why is it the non-negotiable on the races where we not got it? Why was it the optional one on the one where we actually ended up getting it? I'm going to put in Q3 because I have hope in Pierre Gasly, but I don't have hope in Mick getting through Q1 still. So one driver, finish position, one driver in the top 10. I'll remain with that. Qualifying position streak, and of course we've got a new finish position streak as well now. Just to be safer, I'm going to have this run for a longer period of time. So I'm going to have it run for 4 races, but one driver 14th or higher. Because at the very least that kind of removes a little bit of the jeopardy. But as we head into Australia as a whole, of course, we'll see you directly for qualifying and nothing in between. See you in a moment. Well, it's got to be said, that was quite a confusing practice session because it looked like we were still vaguely in the same vicinity we were before the new rear wing in the first 2 practice sessions. Then in practice 3, suddenly 6th and 12th. And not only is it 6th and 12th, it's Pierre Gasly less than half a second behind Verstappen. Also simultaneously, Valtteri Bottas for some reason didn't have pace in that last session. So I don't know what happened there either. Zhou Guanyu's up in 15th. I don't know what's happened in this session. We do get a 15 out of 15, thankfully. Oh god, there's heavy rain in the race. I hadn't seen that till now. Okay, so nearly missed the cutoff point here. We're going to get Gasly out as quickly as possible in this train and then get Mick out as quickly as possible behind that. Oh god, we're ahead of a Red Bull here. That's not good news. I should have waited for both Ferraris and both Red Bulls to be out, but at least it's Gasly the one that's going to be ahead of the Red Bull. Gasly may or may not have been held up by Stroll on his flying lap. He caught him towards the very end, so I don't know how much that mattered. But fascinating that Mick is on the cusp of actually being in Q2 now. I've just seen Russell. Russell in 18th has obviously been hindered. We'll just tick Gasly's page onto the one where I can see how he's doing in his sectors, but we'll be on board with Mick Schumacher as he begins his flying lap. Momentarily, he does have both Alfa Romeos behind him, along with one Haas and one Williams. There's one Williams at the front, and he's behind both AlphaTauris on track too. But everyone is across the line, although the last Haas is going to be a little sketchy in time, just about 6 seconds. That's tight. But Pierre has gone faster in his first sector, so even if he was held up on his original lap, he's still going faster regardless on this particular one. Although we don't know by how much. It could be 1,000th again for all we know. That's happened before. I wouldn't worry too much about Gasly, but I will be fascinated to see how times change in this particular Q1, whether there's a much differential between 1 and 2. Mick's gone slower in his first sector. Someone's locked up. It's a Mercedes. Oh, it's a Mercedes. Which one? Because if it's Russell, he's done for. Gasly's gone faster in his second sector, but there's going to be yellow flag. It is Russell. Ooh, I'm not going to bother watching it, but
yellow exit of 6.
Yeah, whether or not Gasly's going to be held up by that yellow flag is going to be fascinating here. Because annoyingly, Magnussen got across the line and did go faster. Actually, I'm not sure if Schumacher's going to be yellow flagged here. Maybe he was. Let's find out. Gasly didn't go faster. Does Mick go faster overall? Is that yellow flag a problem? Has that yellow flag done, Mick? It has, yeah. They've had to back off. Everyone's had to back off because of Russell. It's put Russell out in Q1. I mean, that's a nice little variation on the boring kind of Q1s up till now. But Mick can feel very hard done by that. I'm just annoyed we wasted the tyres. One thing to note, actually, talking of actually being held up on on flying laps, sorry, as we approach doing the actual flying lap with Gasly again here, who's on the cusp in 10th. Albon ahead, fascinatingly, but Zhou Guanyu in the Williams got through there, worth noting. But yeah, being held up may not be as much of a thing anymore in qualifying, unless you catch them on a corner, which I think is possibly what happened to Russell's first lap. Now, we might get caught out here again if someone has a moment, but I do want to wait for both Ferraris and both Red Bulls with Gasly. I do not want to be ahead of either of those, because I do think they do have an inherent advantage at this point in time. The Williams has come out to block out. Well, Hamilton has to be, because there's only one Mercedes left. There's both Red Bulls. There is a Ferrari still in the camps, and there's that Ferrari. So we'll send Gasly out now. Oh, interesting camera angle there. As we also watch Mick's car not going anywhere. Well, we've got an AlphaTauri ahead now, unfortunately, too. In fact, we are actually last on track. Which does surprise me. I thought the Alphas, or Alpha, because only one of them got through, and the Haas might have been behind us, because they normally go to the back of the queue. But Pierre crosses the line with plenty of time and plenty of gap on the AlphaTauri ahead, so managed that one nicely, did Pierre. We're going to have, well, obviously everyone's going to get across the line way ahead of Gasly on his flying lap, because he's last out, but one of the McLarens is at the front, so if it's Danny Rick, we're going to get a good marker point on whether or not he's going to improve straight away almost. There's also Ocon, who might be second, Both Alpines are fairly high up this order too, so Ocon's either second or fourth on track here. So we'll find out how perilous Pierre's position is momentarily as one of the McLarens heads towards the line. But Pierre's on the technically a straight. There was actually Ricciardo first. Ricciardo goes 5/10 offside. He goes 6th as Alonso crosses the line. Ocon does 6th. Now there's a massive improvement here. Obviously people doing laps on scrub tyres originally as well. Gasly's down to 13th momentarily. Zhou Guanyu is 13th and out. Magnussen 12th and out. Leclerc's not crossed the line yet. He must be that Ferrari that's about to. Leclerc goes 3rd and pushes Danny Rick to 10th. That good first lap almost undone immediately. Albon stays 11th. Gasly stays 11th. Doesn't get Q3. So close. But that was a lot more variation. You saw the difference between scrub tyres and fresh tyres there. It was massive difference between the first qualifying laps and the second qualifying laps. Whereas last time, before the patch, Pierre was often doing slower laps on the fresh tyres than the scrub tyres. So I'm actually intrigued to see what... Okay, so expected strategies all involve medium and hards. And compound performance... Ooh. Okay, so compound performance has changed dramatically. You can see it, provided this has been updated as well. The average lap time is a lot different for each of them, to begin with. But the degradation differences are massive now. And that's obviously average degradation. It's not going to be, hopefully, a straight line. Right then, because it's going to rain about halfway, the only tyre guaranteed to get to that point, where it is almost a certainty it will be a downpour, is the hard tyre. I hate starting on hard tyres, but I'm going to here, because it's the only one that guarantees I will not be doing a pit stop before the rain comes, which is not a certainty for some drivers, AI-wise, because they might be on that strategy. But let's get into the race.
The drivers have now taken position on the grid. Get ready for the Australian Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
The one thing I will say, of course, is we won't be the only ones on hard tyres, although it's only the Williams that have done it. But everyone else is only going to be on mediums too. Oh my God. I don't know what happened at the start there, but there's a massive gap from where Pierre was to everyone else. Everyone's bunched back up again, but...
That's it.
Gasly's immediately up into 10th, Mick's immediately up into 15th. Everything happened so quickly there, I didn't really see what happened. Gasly just launched off the line and got Bottas straight away. Superb, Pierre. That start was insane. It's like he had nitrous. And we're not seeing the replay of whatever Mick did at the beginning, so I'll come back in. Hi. I just noticed the McLarens were 6th and 7th to start this race. They found some pace. And also, now that we're actually in the race, let's have a look at what the report says. So the rain will likely begin. Oh God, it comes in a lot earlier. We could have started on mediums, but we weren't to know. It does look like it will. It kind of follows what we were expecting, actually. There's a little bit of rain, might dry out a little bit, but then it's just going to be horrendous for the remainder of the race. It's likely going to go straight to wets, actually. So whether we can get away with going straight to wets, I don't know. But we've done one full lap, and actually we're down to 50% on our deployment already, so I kind of don't want to try it much more. How's the intervals looking? Everyone is in within a second of everyone else. Well, DRS is going to be a nightmare then. Oh, someone's locked up. I don't know whomst. But it's allowed Mick to get to 14th, so... Vettel, maybe? Magnussen. I knew it was a Haas. Zhou is more than a second behind Mick Schumacher, it's worth noting. So when DRS does enable... Fortunately, it's a double DRS here to begin with, so... The first DRS won't be till... Actually, I don't think there is DRS on the main straight at the back here. I'm going to have to go neutral now on both drivers, ERS-wise. But because it's going to rain, I might as well push the fuel, thinking about it, because that's going to save us fuel. I don't know whether I can, like, not push the tyres, because that rain's coming in a lot earlier than anticipated. I can't remember if there's a DRS... Oh, no, I know where it is. It's after the chicane, isn't it? It's on that straight there, after the chicane, following the long curve straight, for lack of a better term. Just at the beginning of the third sector. But yeah, Zhou's fallen off the train. That technically hasn't started, but it does start the train with Norris, this one. Top 5 in their own race, seemingly now. Mick holding on quite nicely at the back of this train. And I say nicely, he's basically inside Jack Doohan at this stage. Mick's looking every which way he can to try and make a move work. Just not finding it as of yet. Oh, actually, that's a very valid point. Doohan's just gone more than a second behind Albon. If he stays like that, Mick will have double DRS on him. And he has stayed outside a second, much to Mick's pleasure. So Mick will have DRS on Doohan here. Doohan will have nothing. Easy as you like. And more importantly, on the next straight, he'll be able to just DRS away from him again. Because that's what it's like here. Russell has made his way through to 15th now.
Aston Martin with a great play there.
We don't really need to rewatch that one just because it was relatively straightforward. I say DRS away, he didn't actually pull that much out, but I do wonder if Mick can actually get within the second on Albon here. Because he is pushing everything. Or whether or not we might need to utilise the services of one George Russell to make that work. Because he's not gaining on the rest of the lap, unfortunately. And of course I'm saying that as if it's Albon that's going to be dictating his own pace there. It's not, of course. It will be Ricciardo, who's now at the front of the train, dictating that entire train's pace. It's only whether or not, if Albon falls out of it, it's going to be a problem. I mean, this looks like carnage. Everything seems to be rather quiet at the moment, though, as Doohan does get Mick back again. Everything seems to be relatively quiet at this stage. People are changing places. Stroll got Russell back on that lap, which seems hilarious. I'm wondering if I do need to tip this down to just aggressive on Gasly. Now we're on lap 5, we can have to see if this is updated at all. It does look like it might dry out again, which is the bit that concerns me. So we're kind of looking at 22 as a less sort of latest point. So lap 22 would be here. So still plenty of tyres, you'd think. But yeah, I'm not fully certain we can get away with, because it's going to be lap sort of 18 to 22-ish. That line is tracking very much downwards. In fact, we can sort of almost simulate it, can't we, via a strategy, if we were to create a new strategy that starts with hards and goes to straight to wets, let's say, where lap 22 is. So yeah, so just 4 push will get you to exactly lap 22 right now. So I might even need to go down further from where we are. A little weird that it doesn't track the where that we've already used. That seems a bit dumb. Yeah, I can't 5 push the entire way. That's what that says. So I might actually need to go down to 3 for a bit. Just do a few laps on standard, make sure we have the tyre wear. Yeah, it doesn't look like we need to be on aggressive to stay in this train, which is the important bit. The Alpines have worked their way through the McLarens, I've noticed now. Oh, yeah, just went outside a second, so that does concern me a little bit.
Let's have a look.
I'll watch this particular highlight because it's going to show what I was going to talk about. I struggled to get off 16 times speed there for a moment. Russell has found his way up to this fight, which doesn't annoy me, because obviously Russell pushing this train, whilst the team may be devastated, I'm not, because provided Mick is the one on track immediately behind George, he's the one that's going to be pushing. Well, he's going to be the first one that's pulled along by him. But this is a train with Doohan, Stroll, Vettel and Zhou Guanyu, remarkably. I'm just staying on aggressive just to make sure. Might just take a little bit of fuel out of Pierre, just in case. I know the rain section might actually save us fuel, but just in case the mechanics of the game don't accurately do that. But I want Russell to sort of slowly pull us towards the train that begins with the Alpines that Gasly's in already, as Mick actually overtakes. I mean, Russell, if you could stay ahead, George, that would be nice. Thank you. Well, we're now 13 laps into this, and we can see, wow, you can really see the difference between Mick and Gasly there in a period of pushing tyres. Wow. There we are, there's the rain warning, and it has updated again a little bit. 4 laps till there's a bit of rain, and then it dries out, and then it just goes full wet. That's a good point. I do need to check real quick how long the wets are good for. 69 laps, apparently, so obviously that's their full use. I did set up, obviously, a wet strategy with Pierre, so the wets on just regular push. We'll get to the end of the race, actually, so we don't need to worry about that too much. I'm just concerned if they've modelled the wet weather tyres better now. There's a little bit where it dries out. Or, more importantly, wet tyres in inter conditions and inters in wet conditions. Whether or not that's been sort of more accurately sorted out. And Hamilton's fallen out of the top 4 now, I realise. He's just driving by himself as Mick does get past George. What is wrong with George here? I mean, whilst it's not too far off according to this forecast, maybe like 4 laps, I am marginally concerned if this rain is inaccurate, because I've still only got 80% focus accuracy. But I want George to get Mick before we get to the main straight. I want George to get Mick here, if possible. Gasly's not actually saving fuel at this stage, which concerns me. Suddenly got sunny, weirdly. But George has not got past Mick on the straight with DRS. I mean, I'm expecting him to get it on the second one, but what the heck, George? Are you struggling? Oh, he's just nabbed him at the very end there of the second DRS straight.
Wow.
I mean, wow, yes, indeed, Mick, but it was a great move. Is something up with Russell's car? I kind of want to watch that one again. It was that good, and I've not come back after the last highlight, I've now realised. I mean, yeah, he just outbrakes Mick there. I mean, it's superb work from George. It is superb work from George, but what a weird race so far already. I don't know what's up with George. Maybe he damaged his car when he crashed. Oh, people are pitting. There are silly people who are on the medium-hard, medium strategy, which look like Verstappen, Leclerc, Ocon, Ricciardo, Bottas have all come in. We'll find out who in this pack as Mick gets past Russell again.
That's it.
Russell, Doohan, Vettel. I mean, a lot of silly people here are pitting before the rain comes. And I'm presuming they're going on to hards. We'll check their tyres as they come out. There they are. And in fact, I think I just saw the first rain drops. We can possibly just go attack now then. What a silly time to have pitted.
So we're happy to push the tyres.
Actually, that's a valid point. Those ones that are just coming out of the pits now, did they actually put on hard tyres? They did. So, lap 16, 0.7 of a millimetre of rain. It's come early, again. Now, there's a concern, of course, that it's going to go back down again. And I'm wondering, I wish there was a vertical scale here, because this means nothing to me without a vertical scale. That top point there could be 2 millimetres for all we know. I'm wondering if this might be inters too wet, because there's a sort of a section here of what could be about 10 laps where it might not hit wet territory. We will have time to react because obviously Perez and Sainz are, 10 seconds ahead of Gasly at this point in time. So we can see if they pit. Now, we have no idea what they're going to pit onto, but we can see if they pit. But it's going to hit into conditions by the end of this lap. And it's immediately just gone very low track rubber. So I kind of actually immediately just want to go back down to standard pace just because that concerns me. I mean, right now, I'm going to set inters on Mick and Gasly. They are far enough apart that I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I also, most importantly, Perez didn't come in. We are not going to see what they go on to. This is not getting wet enough fast enough to go straight to wets. They've gone on to inters, so at the very least, we've followed what they're doing. Right, so here's Gasly. Norris didn't come in. So the rain's coming back down again. That's my concern. That was my concern. So Gasly's in. He's being held for some reason. I don't know who it was who was trying to get... It was Albon. Being held for the AlphaTauri, annoyingly. But Mick, thankfully, at least wasn't held up by the double stack specifically. And Stroll's got past as... No, he hasn't. Stroll hasn't got past as a result. People have stayed out, actually, behind, weirdly. So he's staying around that 1 millimetre... ish. I'm not fully certain how Verstappen got onto an intermediate tyre. He must have pitted and still come out ahead of Mick, and I didn't realise there. But the one thing I want to see now, actually, because now we're at 1 millimetre on the track, I want to see our gap to leader. Oh, never mind. Now it's gone back under 1 millimetre at this point, but I kind of want to see what the gaps do for people who didn't change. Leclerc and Zhou didn't change their tyres. So Albon... Oh, hang on. Did the Alpine stay out? And Alonso went on wets for some reason. So we were closing up on the people who were on dry tyres there, is what I wanted to know. And because these are inters, I can't really push them as hard as the wets. Did Norris come back out again ahead of Gasly? How did he manage that? Perez, who stayed out, went behind the people who did pit by several seconds. In fact, Sainz is now 6 seconds ahead of Perez because Perez didn't pit. Yet Norris, who also didn't pit, somehow is still ahead of Gasly when he was in the same train of cars before the rain came. And the rain is now back again. So Mick's in the top 10, but he's got Leclerc directly behind him. Well, he's actually being held up by Alonso here, oddly enough. Because I think Alonso's on wets and they are not being... That might answer a question then. Alonso did a 147. I mean, we haven't got a lot of battery, but we can maybe try to make it work. Alonso did a 147 and Gasly did a 139. That might be the... Mick did a 133. How did he manage to do that? Oh, Alonso's come in again. There we are. Never mind. We don't need to use our extra. Although, weirdly, Alonso's coming in now as the track is getting closer to being wet again. But that was one of the big questions I want to know. I want to know how wet tyres functioned in intermediate conditions now, because before there was no penalty. There was no real penalty using wet tyres in dry conditions when they got below 1mm as well. As long as it wasn't bone dry, as in 000, the intermediate wet tyre still worked before the patch, which was stupid. But, so it's good work from Mick so far, currently in 8th. Obviously not holding on to Verstappen, who is closing on Gasly at an alarming rate now. But, in fact, I might just use this opportunity with Verstappen and closing down on Gasly to harvest him. Mick is actually fighting Leclerc, because there's no DRS at this point. So this is all just straight pace between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari, which obviously Leclerc has more of.
Probably P9.
But I don't want to harvest with Mick at this point, because there are other cars behind him. We literally saw that one, we won't rewatch that, but... we might do. There we are, fighting the Ferrari on track. Legitimately.
Goodness me, moving ahead of the other
Yeah, silly boys doing a pit stop before the rain came. I wonder how much of a slipstream Leclerc's giving Mick now. There's no DRS, but I wonder how much of a slipstream he's giving him. We'll just see Verstappen hunt Gasly for the meantime. We're also a little bit stuck on Albon at this point, it's worth saying, so I'm harvesting for that sake. But whilst there's no DRS, I might as well harvest. Sort of just pull off the back of Albon for the time being. Maybe let Verstappen through. Let Verstappen fight Albon and Norris in particular. And maybe try to bring them back into Pierre. But now it's raining, we can sort of push the fuel a little bit more with Mick too. So, now he's not really held on the back of Charles Leclerc there, has he? Let's be honest. And Verstappen's joined Pierre at lap 21. What actually is the forecast? Oh, it's just a straight upwards trajectory now. We're currently apparently on 2mm, and there's a heavy period incoming. Oh, I wish I knew what the line height meant. Because are we being mugged off here? And does it think this is currently meant to be about 1mm, but it's on 2? So therefore, that maximum is, they think, is about 2 to 3 maybe. Or is that going to be above 4? Just say heavy rain. So I'm leaning towards it's going to be a wet race at some point. But right now, it's hovering around 2mm, which is obviously intermediate territory. And that's what we're in currently. I'll just like unharvest for the time being. I just kind of want to maybe have the benefit of Verstappen for the time being. But yeah, Leclerc's running away from Mick and Danny Rick actually. The Williamses have fallen off that because there's no DRS to help them out. But good work from the Williamses, just strategy-wise to, you know, take advantage of the rain. Holding Bottas up too, which is nice. Because Mick is doing a 128.2. They are doing 128.5, so it's 0.3. Gasly did a 128.2, but he did get overtaken on that lap, so... Gasly's only doing 128.3s. Both he and Mick are doing the same lap, basically, in the rain. Okay, well now he's fallen off Verstappen. We might as well harvest a bit more with Gasly. Make the most of it. I do think we're about to hit wets, though. And actually, we are about to hit wets, so... Attack the tyres. Neutral the fuel for the time being. Oh, Mick is very close to the pit lane. It's too late for Gasly, but we are about to hit wet territory. And it's the only way is up, apparently. So... I'm going to pit Mick in a slightly odd place because he's on the outside of the game. Didn't know what to do there with them two. I'm going to be the first to blink with Mick because everyone else is going to be driving on a wet track now. No one else has come in, which I don't understand. But these wet tyres... Oh, Alonso's gone back in. The one who went on wets in the first place. That was a slow stop. What happened there? A lot of other people have come out now. Yeah, so unfortunately for Pierre, we are a little bit trapped here, but... Obviously, we'll set him up for a pit stop here, but we're going to hope that for everyone else, this is going to slow them down dramatically. We will come off harvest again, just because. And we'll see what kind of interval. So 6 seconds on Russell. This will tell us, by the time Russell pits, what the track conditions are doing for intermediate tyres right now. Because similarly, there wasn't that much of a penalty for intermediate tyres in wet conditions, it didn't seem. Unless he got, like, properly wet. So Mickey's just straight up gaining on Russell at this point. So Gasly's in. We also want to see if Gasly can maybe overcut... I mean, not going to overcut Albon at that distance, is he? Let's be honest. I wonder if he's going to hold anyone up. No, it doesn't look like he's going to hold anyone up. Well, there goes Albon, I think, past him, which is good news. People stayed out. Okay, so the rate level is coming back down again. Did we blink too early? Here comes Schumacher. A lot of people now pitting again, though. The front batch haven't pitted, but everyone in the middle has. And here goes Mick past all of them. Also importantly, how much clear of Ricciardo is he going to be? Oh, we're still harvesting with Gasly. That's not going to help. Oh, Leclerc's going to actually stop our Albon here because Leclerc didn't pit. So Mick actually got 2.6 seconds on Ricciardo there through that pit stop. Okay, so we can't actually 5-push these tyres for the entire time, so we'll bring that down now. We sort of had the benefit of the actual push lap with Mick, because he's not going to gain on anyone else because it's only Gasly ahead of him. Gasly's 17 seconds ahead of Mick. I don't know how that's happened. But obviously we push Gasly until this lot pit. So Norris and Verstappen are in. I was almost tempted to deploy Gasly here, but I might... Oh, he's actually got stuck on the back of Leclerc before he pitted there, but I kind of mostly want to deploy Gasly once he reaches Albon and therefore tries to overtake him. Gasly cannot be... I was going to say, Gasly cannot be 5 seconds behind Albon. He really doesn't look it. Oh, he's straight behind Norris. Deploy. Get him immediately. Get him immediately. On the inside, Gasly on the inside. Oh, it's actually Verstappen ahead again. So yeah, Verstappen's good work undone by not pitting early enough. Perez, Sainz and Hamilton haven't pitted. Unfortunately, they are 27 seconds ahead of Albon, so I don't think there's much of a muchness there. Didn't really see that overtake with Norris, so we'll...
Let's have a look.
I was looking at the times as Gasly actually made it stick in the rain. But through the car park. That might be one of my least favourite lines of dialogue in the game, which moves them up a position. Really, how did you think overtaking worked in terms of positions? The Perez is now pitting. I'm trying to work out if we're gaining on Albon here. Oh, well, Leclerc's got Schumacher again, which is unsurprising. But yeah, pushing Gasly a little bit more now. Standard for now. Verstappen hasn't got Albon yet, which is a problem. I don't know what Max is doing, but he is not overtaking. I mean, this is going to be a blinding result for Alexander Albon if it stays the way it is. But it's a good result for Mick as things stand too, just 9th. The Williams is holding up Bottas behind, so it's only going to be 9th or 10th really, is going to be the question for Mick. Not fully certain how both drivers have got plus 0.2 of a kilogram when there is 0.4 of a kilogram between them. Max, can you overtake Alex, please? Because if you do that, then we can too. There is a portion of this lap where Gasly actually looks more likely to overtake Verstappen than the other way around. Than Verstappen. Oh, there we go. He's done it. I knew if I talked about Gasly maybe overtaking, then it would go the other way. Oh, God. Ricciardo's got Mick, but I'm going to harvest with Mick now. Sorry, I didn't watch the replay there. Don't know what happened.
Just need to charge up.
It's suddenly sunny, but it's also raining at the same time. It's a beautiful image, but... So Gasly's on the back of Albon. We are deploying, we are attacking, we are doing everything in our power to get past Albon at this stage of the race. It's still a blinding result for Albon, whether he's in the top 7, frankly. There's 15 seconds back to Leclerc, which I imagine actually will be caught up, but... So yeah, nothing doing there for Pierre. That wasn't intended to rhyme, but we'll make it work. Bottas has actually got past Zhou now, I've noticed. I am more concerned for Mick's 10th position. But we'll harvest a little bit with Mick, and we might be able to push his tyres, actually, at some stage, along with the fuel, maybe later on. Pierre Gasly changed direction 2 times to try and get past Albon. No DRS, but we are using ERS and our tyres. He's stuck his nose in, he's kept his nose in onto the second, well, the second part of the DRS would be, but it isn't there now. We'll just keep deploying for the next few corners. There isn't too much more of a problem. We'll rewatch that, and I will remember to come back with my camera again. I'm doing so well today. I'm been a long week already, which is a sentence doesn't make much sense at this point because this will, in theory, be released Saturday. It's being recorded on Wednesday, but we'll just keep deploying. Make sure, just build up the gap on Albon. I'm not expecting there to be a DRS again at any point in this race. It looks like the rain is going to be here to stay for the remainder of this race, so we might as well keep it for now. Just build up the gap. There we are, that'll do me for now. 9/10 will do us. We'll just hold a bit of charge for fun maybe later on. We'll bring back the tyre wear as well, because I'm not as confident. In fact, let's actually set this up as a strategy, in particular for Mick, because I want to make sure this last stint is recorded as... Oh, 4 push would actually see you at the end, so there we are. I want to actually be able to see what we're doing here a little bit better in regards to our tyres. So yeah, there was a little bit more wiggle room. I think we can go aggressive. And Mick's got a little bit more in the bank than Pierre at this point. In fact, I'll take Mick off harvesting because I don't want him falling immediately into Bottas's range. Of course, the question mark will come on whether or not later on, if this rain goes back below 4, millimeters long enough, whether or not these tyres will perform in that kind of territory. We don't know. It's new territory for the game, because they've changed the way the tyres work, especially wet tyres. So maybe the wet tyres won't be as good in the conditions one tier lower of wetness. But Bottas is closing up, and actually Russell's got through the Williamses now as well. So I'm more concerned for Mick. But unfortunately, just because there's no DRS, obviously it's limiting the overtaking in today's race quite dramatically. But we're just going to let things go around a little bit longer for a few more laps. It's sort of the point when Bottas maybe gets within 2 seconds is where it gets concerning. We might push Mick up to then aggressive at that point, and I think we're at that point now. So we'll just move. Gasly's sort of just running around in 5th now without too much worry. Albon and Norris. Norris has got close to Albon. But I think we can just sort of save Pierre's tyres for the time being and not worry about them too much. Obviously, when Leclerc reaches that group, which he probably will do with 21 laps to go and only 10 seconds the gap, I think he will reach them. But it is chucking it down. Oh, actually, okay, so it looks like it will get wetter again briefly, but it might go back down to intermediate conditions. We might see a third pit stop. We might see a return to intermediate if intermediate conditions no longer work for wet tyres, which was obviously the problem before, was the fact that intermediate tyres worked when it was dry, like as long as there was 0.01 of a millimetre of water on track, then intermediate tyres worked. And so did the wet tyres. They weren't that much of a detriment once it started to dry out. You weren't forced to go onto dry tyres as soon as it went under 1 millimetre. Which admittedly is fair, there should be a changeover, but they were working all the way down to sort of 0.1 millimetre. It seemed like as long as there was any moisture on the track, wet tyres will work to some degree. Now, I'm hoping that if it goes under 4 millimetres, these wet tyres will start to not function as well. And we are heading towards that currently, but I don't think we're actually going to go under 4. So I was mildly hoping this would go under 4 here, and that might trigger some people to change their tyres, and then it would rain again. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It is coming down slowly, but I don't think it's going to go under 4. But I do wonder if we are going to head towards intermediate conditions after this little bump that's incoming again. In fact, it's actually going to dip down maybe. Oh, maybe we'll get the dip down into under 4. We might actually get our first taste of wet tyres in intermediate conditions. I know there was Alonso, and it didn't seem like he was having fun on wet tyres in intermediate conditions. So, oh no, it's raining again. Never mind. We're not going to get that dip down. That's immediately lied to me. Nope, it's just getting wetter again. We've just shot straight back up to about 6 millimetres of rain or more. Oh, hang on. What's happened here? Sainz has pitted. Why? Sainz has pitted onto intermediate tyres just as it was getting wetter again. I mean, it might pay out for them in the long run here, because I think it is going to go down to intermediate conditions, but we're having a Ferrari moment, ladies and gentlemen, and those that identify elsewhere. We're having a Ferrari moment. What are Ferrari doing? As the track temperature just changes on a split second there to 25 degrees. I mean, Gasly's currently 7 seconds behind Sainz. We are 100% in wet territory. Norris has actually got past Albon, we'll say. I do think we are going to be heading towards intermediate conditions towards the end of this race. So whether or not that's going to be a sensible thing to do, I don't know. But Russell got past Bottas, but Russell's now within range of Mick Schumacher, annoyingly. Sainz has pitted again because he's an idiot. In fact, are we about to hit the back of the train with Gasly? We are. That's Stroll and Ocon ahead. I don't know why Ocon's that far behind, but I didn't see what... I know Alonso had to pit twice because he went on wrong tyres and then the right tyres, but I don't know what happened with Ocon. I don't know why he's 19th. The Sainz has had to pit again. What a fool. So Leclerc's now out of this. So Sainz is back on wet tyres, I imagine. Yep. And it's probably about to dry out soon. I mean, it's currently getting wetter. I'm almost tempted to start pushing Gasly's tyres because Norris is getting closer, which I don't like. Interestingly, ever since Mick's gone on aggressive and Russell has got past Bottas, Bottas's gap has sort of remained the same. Like, Bottas hasn't closed up. Russell got through him, but Bottas hasn't closed up on Mick. But Gasly's about to catch the back markers, so this will be our first taste of cars getting out of the way, because I didn't kind of watch in quali. So if you could get out of the way, Stroll, get out of the way, or we'll just overtake you sort of vaguely normally. I didn't really feel like much of a get out of the way. That was more of a get out of the way. That was better. I'm not sure you helped us there much. But he's about to catch Ocon here. Now, the fascinating thing is whether or not Gasly's faster than Ocon. Because I don't know if he will be. Leclerc came back out in 18th. Ferrari have utterly Ferrari'd it. Still getting wetter, which is not what it said it would do. How is that? How was that peak 6 millimeters of rain and this peak 7.7? Some clarity on this would be better. I know obviously forecast accuracy is a thing, but it'd be not. Oh god, it goes back up again in the end. Okay, well that's changed. Even if this was about to dip back under 4, I'm now not certain I would want to do that. Hang on, position lost. What's happened there? Oh, Russell. Okay. And actually, Bottas is slowly closing. I didn't see it. We'll watch it. Where did he do it? Oh, in the car park. In the car park section. I mean, it's still a good race, and I do think we've capitalised on the rain as best we could. Mick's doing his best, bless him. He might not be... Actually, I think that might be one of Mick's better sections, is the sort of adaptability section, as I remember to actually come back this time. I think that's one of his... No, because his middle section is sort of his best section of attributes. The one where smoothness is for tyre wear. I think we can aggressive this. I think as soon as we get to like plus 1 kilogram, we'll push the fuel as well on both drivers. It's got to plus 0.7 at this stage. So obviously that's about, what, half a lap? So we've still got like an extra half a lap's worth of fuel that we're carrying around at this point. Yeah, Bottas is actually closing up annoyingly quickly. So I am concerned now for Mick. Mick might finish this race 11th. Gasly might finish this race 4th though. And yeah, Gasly actually isn't catching Ocon. We've done Ocon a world of favours there by just ditching Stroll out of the way for him. Right, I'm noticing the rain, the water levels dropping at this point, but we're still sort of a good solid 3 millimeters above wet conditions. So I'm not going to be concerned until it gets to sort of 5. All right, so Gasly's managed to maintain Norris at about 2 seconds. Bottas is behind Mick, but yeah, that's very much straight up fighting territory for them. We're in the 5s, but with 12 laps to go, there's been an incident somewhere. What's happened there? Vettel locked up on turn 2. That's not a big deal. 11 laps to go though. Leclerc's found his way up to 16th. Bottas remains behind Mick. We can have a look at this. Not a bad word for Mick, really. Let's be real. And what is the forecast now? Because it's now heading towards 5 millimeters. Oh, that's a straight line downwards. I've got a weird feeling it's going to dry out a bit into intermediate conditions, and then the last lap will just be inexplicably wet. The way that graph looks right now, and the way that the number is falling, or has fallen the last couple of laps, we've gone from 7.7 something to 5 point something here in the last couple of laps, and that line is continuing to go downwards, despite the fact it says 100% chance of rain. I've got a weird feeling we're heading towards intermediate territory. I mean, either way, we've got 11 laps left. Stay behind. Keep Bottas behind, will you? You need that point. My concern with this heading towards intermediate territory is people won't pit. And I still don't know if wets in intermediate conditions are going to be noticeably slower now. I would hope they are, but we still don't know that. I think Gasly did catch Ocon eventually, because it does look like he's behind Albon on the track. And the gap to Stroll has been cut to 2.7. So I think we've actually all lapped Ocon now. Because there's only 10 laps remaining, and we've still got a millimetre more. Oh, it's going up again now, actually. A millimetre more of rain on track than necessary for intermediates. So it's whether or not a pit stop length would be recovered. That's the dilemma. But actually, the water levels are not going down now.
To let these tires cool a bit.
It is not... I mean, we're on 80% forecast accuracy now. You'd think that'd be vaguely accurate at this point. They might as well just made the forecast accuracy 10, 20, 30%, 100. Because it's supposed to be going down at this point, and it just isn't. At no point has the forecast been anything more than a general trend, even at 80%. Now the water levels are going back up again, inexplicably. I can't push Schumacher's tyres anymore, because we've got to get to the end on these. Because it doesn't look like it's going to go down to intermediate conditions. In regards to fuel, I appreciate the fact they changed the delta to what it should be, which is the amount of fuel you currently have versus the amount of fuel you should have to get to the end of the race. That's what it should be, not a prediction, which is what it was before, based on your current driving. I don't like the fact they changed it to kilograms, because now I don't know how much more of a lap I've got. I would very much prefer that still stayed in number of laps versus number of laps compared to the number of laps you've got in your, you should have at this point. Because I don't know how much of a lap I've got here. Because obviously every single track has different lap lengths and therefore different track kilograms per lap. I think here, 0.7 might be about a lap. Sorry, no, it varies between like 1 and 2 kilograms a lap, doesn't it? So I think we've got about half a lap extra. Because right now I'm trying to work out how early I can go, right, push the fuel and it not be a problem. I don't know why they changed the delta and fuel metric. Changing the way the delta is measured, fine. But the actual unit seems a bit weird. But I'm kind of I'm keeping things on 1 times speed right now just because I kind of want to react to the weather. I don't want it to just suddenly drop out of nowhere, and it looks like it is again. Mick's got to keep bias behind for the next 8 laps. Or 7 laps, I should say. Because we're about to start lap 52 as well. No, we're about to start lap 51 with Mick, so yeah, 8 more laps. Including the one we're on already. Alonso has made his way through the Williamses, who at very least are going to get a very nice count-back position here in 13th, 14th going forward. In fact, they will actually go ahead of Haas, Williams, at the end of this race, just because a 13th might be higher than any Haas finish so far this season. Obviously, Albon's in 6th, so they're going to be scoring points. Might as well test it. We've got 0.7 of a kilogram extra on both cars. Push the fuel. In theory, I don't know how actually. To be fair, I don't know how they both got the same amount of extra fuel when their cars have got different amounts of fuel. You'd think they'd have the same amount of fuel in their car right this moment. So I do feel like I'm being lied to still in some respect here. I just don't know how. Where is the leader, by the way? Hamilton's winning. I've just realised Hamilton's winning. He is getting close to the... Is he getting close to Leclerc on track? He is. People are pitting. Oh, no. Right, it's too late for Gasly. He's past the pit lane entry. Norris also hasn't pitted either. Sainz has pitted again, so if this backfires, they have absolutely Ferrari'd it. We are not at intermediate conditions yet. It's close to, but we're not at intermediate conditions yet. And there's still 6 laps left, including the one we're about to start. And it's going to apparently get wetter again at the end. So I'm not certain this track will dry out enough to warrant this change of tyres. Verstappen did come back out again on intermediates ahead of Gasly, immediately ahead of Gasly. I mean, this will tell us. Bottas has pitted, but Russell didn't. We can see from the immediate delta with Verstappen whether or not the intermediates are worth it. I mean, obviously Verstappen's faster than Gasly anyway, let's be real. But I'm not certain there's enough laps left for this to be worth it. I'm still concerned by the different amount of fuel in both cars, but we'll put that to one side for now. The leaders are pitted. Now, the leaders are obviously a full pit stop ahead anyway, so they've got nothing to lose by pitting, actually. To be fair, they've got nothing to lose. You saw Verstappen went in and came out ahead of... Actually, how did Verstappen come in and go out ahead of Gasly? Did Verstappen build a pit stop? In the interval between going on to wets and now, Verstappen built an entire pit stop on Gasly. I mean, that's an alarming warning to the pace difference. But more and more people are pitting now. So don't forget, obviously, there's also a tyre wear difference here, but Gasly has only lost about a second on Verstappen, and when you factor in the fact that Verstappen was a full pit stop length ahead of Gasly before he pitted, when they were on track when they came up. Put it this way, Verstappen and Gasly came out of the pit stops, the wet pit stops, originally together. And then over the last 20 or so laps, he's built up a pit stop gap. Now see, now we're getting into awkward territory, because he is now vastly losing time. We're not even a full millimetre under yet, and we are vastly losing time now. I am going to stick it out. At this point, we have to commit. In fairness, how much do we lose with Gasly by pitting at this point? Have we had a full lap? I think Albon pitted. Yeah, he's on intermediates. I'm just intrigued to know if we've had a full lap or not. We can't have, because Gasly's got a 1:29 for his last lap. He's obviously slower. Hamilton is about to cross the line, but he's... Yeah, Oh, can I see sector times? Actually, that's a point. Why can't I see the current lap? Oh no, because we're on lap 54. Okay, so you're right. I need to compare to Albon, don't I? So Albon's done a 37.4 in the last sector there. Gasly did a 37.9. Oh, this is tricky because it's 4 full laps once we cross the line here. Gasly on that lap has lost 2 seconds on Verstappen. Now, don't forget, obviously, the fact that, obviously, it's brand new fresh intermediates versus 60% wets as well, so that's a factor. So it's not just, it's wets. My concern is this tip up again. It might be coming down now, but the last lap or 2 laps might be wet again. I'm more concerned by Mick, I think we need to stick it out another lap. Oh, it's going back up. As soon as I click play, the water level goes back up again. All that concern, gone. Immediately my concern has evaporated, ironically. But we actually are losing that fuel, like, straight away. So
fuel.
we're going to have to bring that fuel back up again. Someone's crashed, I think. Oh, someone's just run wide. Okay. Mick is now 9th.
Was that a lock-up on the...
Oh, Russell was the one to lock up. Interesting. I was expecting it to be someone on intermediates being caught out by the wet weather immediately. There are 4 full laps at this point, for those that are yet to cross the line and haven't been lapped by Hamilton, which is everyone Vettel upwards, actually. I think Leclerc's been lapped at this point, because he's pitted, yeah. Leclerc pitted for intermediate. Ferrari did it again. The one bit I didn't understand was Ferrari going on to intermediate. Oh my lord, that you can see it there. There we are. That's what I was concerned about, going on to intermediates and that happening. Ferrari pitted onto intermediates there, and then it went immediately to 7mm of rain. I can't believe they've coded Ferrari perfectly in just getting everything wrong.
3 to go.
And now Verstappen is on intermediate tyres and Gasly is up his chuff. Now it's Verstappen the one that's struggling. And Gasly just waltzes by. I forgot the front 2 pitted for intermediates. Surely not. There's 3 full laps here still. 2.5. We'll rewatch that. How bad are intermediates in wet conditions? Because Hamilton and Perez pitted too.
Goodness me.
And there is 10 seconds to Perez. I mean, it's 13 to Hamilton. Unless they're like 6 seconds slower a lap, they might be all right. Has Pierre positioned himself? I'm now very concerned that Pierre has positioned himself for the unlikeliest of victories. I mean, are we about to... Spoilers if you haven't watched it yet, but Abu Dhabi this again. Albon's ruined his race as well here. I forgot about that. Mick is just sidling up to the back of Sainz and Albon. Joe's getting a point. Williams are getting a point. Never mind countback. Williams are getting a point. What happened to Russell? Did Russell pit? Oh, Russell did pit for Inters. I didn't think he had. Mick's just got Sainz, and I can see Albon immediately ahead of them, just causing an absolute roadblock. Let him by, Alex. Don't be stupid. Just let him by. I mean, annoyingly, they're quite competitive here on the straight bit, but as soon as you get to a corner, the intermediate tyre's like, no! It's a corner! Oh my god, actually, yeah, Mick's last lap, 1:33.3. Albon's lap, 1:41. Oh god, the wet tyres are 8 seconds a lap faster. I mean, in the context of this bit, irrelevant for Mick. I think he's got the last of the cars that have ruined their races. I think the McLaren stayed out too. I mean, Australia's delivering again. Last time it was just people crashing everywhere. This time it's a wet weather carnage. Oh my god. Never mind whether he'll get 9 seconds in 3 laps. He's got 9 seconds in 1 lap. Just flip back to Gasly and suddenly there's a Perez in front of him. Come on, Pierre. Get him. Get him. Because Hamilton's only 3 seconds up the road here. You do have... I think, weirdly enough, actually, Perez is going to be the one that's harder to get past than Hamilton. You may deploy. Get him before the track dries out a bit more again. You can probably push the fuel again now. Pierre, it's like 1 lap and you've got extra 0.7. Yeah, so yeah, the McLarens didn't pit. It's coming back to them a little bit more, but... How did Perez defend? I mean, I know he's the master of defence, but crikey! Appropriate term to be using in Australia. How did he suddenly just get... Oh, weird.
Good job.
Perez may have just saved Hamilton, weirdly. Norris has got Verstappen behind, I've now noticed. Oh. He's put a nose in. That was a very weird camera angle. I now can't... I don't know if he's ahead. He's ahead. Is there enough of a lap to get Hamilton? We won't bother with a replay here. We will bother with a replay. It might be the best replay.
See what happened there.
Oh, I'm hoping they used better camera angles on the replay because we didn't really see what happened. Oh, they have, thankfully. I mean, this is a heck of a points haul.
And they clear it.
Whilst our car is still terrible.
Race position gain.
Or not good, at least. 3 seconds. The level of water is coming down. I'm not sure the differential is going to be enough for Hamilton. There's like 3 corners to go. There's Hamilton on the track ahead. Perez held them up for too long. Perez has saved Hamilton. Joe got Albon at the very, very, very death. It's a full second. Hamilton was saved by Perez. I can't believe it. Mick got 7th. Let's not forget that as well in the background there. I don't need to see competitive 1.
Take the pickup.
So Gasly with his 4th podium of his Aston Martin career.
Yeah.
So Aston the ones without points now. Bet Mick's happy.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Take all the pickup on the way in.
Mick finished it. I'd just like to point out,
Copy that. Just take all the pickup.
we are technically the, because we changed engine providers. We are the best 2 Ferrari powered cars in that race. We were the best 2 Ferrari powered cars because Mick got science as well. And in terms of Ferrari Academy drivers, Mick's the best Ferrari driver. You love to see it. Poor doing again though, by the way. 18th is qualifying to. I'll get out of the way for this. We're going to go podium, of course, for Gasly here. Get a new line, Crofty. Get a new line. I love that we spent like 3 or 4 minutes debating whether or not it was worth coming on intermediates, and then literally the split second, Hamilton is thrilled. I love how the actual man, like the sort of the man from the team, the representative, is always so moody. They start smiling when Pierre's just gone straight for him there. not even your constructor. That's a feel-good podium, isn't it? Don't get me wrong, they didn't really root for Hamilton when he was dominant, but now they're an underdog. It's especially with a year into the game, seeing Hamilton on top spot, it's kind of nice again. But both Pierre and Mick Schumacher up 9 places in the race. Yuki Tsunoda up 9. But yeah, some silly boys down here making far too many pit stops. Valtteri Bottas finished 15th. And there's our former driver at the very bottom. I don't think he even had that many pit stops. He had 4 pit stops. I don't know where he went wrong there, but you can see how they Ferrari'd it. 6 pit stops for Leclerc, 5 for Sainz. Tsunoda and Magnussen only with 2 pit stops. You can see the ones that did well, though. Pierre, Lando Norris, Mick Schumacher, Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda, and Magnussen, all with just the 2 pit stops. I love the fact that, by the way, I love the fact that Yuki Tsunoda and Kevin Magnussen only had 2 pit stops and still were 11th and 12th. They had the benefit of not making an inordinate amount of pit stops and still they get points. Quite frankly, if you're Yuki Tsunoda and Magnussen there, you've got to be going, what? Even Albon made an extra pit stop and still ended up ahead of them. Albon finished 10th. That's such a shame. He was 6th before they ruined his race at the end there. 6th. He still got fastest lap as well to Carlos Sainz. Sergio Perez cleared it on pole as well because he's got 16 points. But 18 points for Pierre Gasly and 6 for Mick. I'm in the way, really, of these, but as we move to the drivers page, we can see how that affects things. Pierre's up to 5th of the drivers. Okay, sure. Lewis up to 3rd, of course, as well, with that 25 points haul. I mean, the Red Bull's still miles ahead of everyone else, kinda. Mick doesn't move from 11th, weirdly, with 6 extra points. I guess he goes ahead of someone, but also gets usurped by someone at the same time because Daniel Ricciardo goes ahead of him, but he goes ahead of Fernando Alonso. There we are, Alexander Albon with 1 point, and Williams and Zhou Guanyu with 2 points. They've got points for the first time in this series. Yeah, Williams finished pointless last year. And Haas now, unfortunately, at the bottom of the pile. Mick, at the end of that race, thank God he escaped. Mercedes takes 2nd because of Ferrari's stupidity. But yeah, we have 37 points after 3 races. And our car isn't good. That's the concerning part going forward. Mick with 1,000 points. How did Gasly only end up with 800 points with the podium? I've just noticed there, they've actually put pluses next to them. I don't think they had those before. Well, he didn't do a lot of overtaking, but he got 2nd. Oh, because of the entire time. Oh, I've just realised what happened with Mick. I know why he's got so many points. It's the entire time he had Daniel Ricciardo, then Bottas behind him in those wet periods because they counted as successful defends every single time. He got 16 of them over the course of the race, whereas Pierre didn't really have to do any defending. 4 million? We'll take that. No points for anyone, unfortunately. Development points, I mean. Ollie Colwell? Oh, you've got one in the background. Right then, what do we start building on you? I think obviously we've got to get all of these to 60. I might get Behrman before the end of this year. I'm not going to lie. He's already developed and he will turn 18 over the course of this season, I think. So I don't think you actually have to wait for them to be 18 in the game, but I'm keeping it legitimate. Ooh, these guys have got points. What haven't we done yet? We haven't done a chassis yet. So let's put that point in chassis and let's put that point in airflow sensitivity because that will improve our dirty air statistics, which are particularly bad. So what happened? Yes, the changes will be for high speed next year. High speed will be pulled down, and that's where we're bad. We're good in low speed, and that's only getting a 10% drop. And we're bad in high speed, and that's getting a 30% drop. So this vote has actually worked in our favour. And that's a valid point. Car part research has been unlocked. We've now got a 3rd spot for car part research. Whilst there won't be any engineers available, I suppose as long as we keep 1 engineer available, we can do that going forward. We just didn't do it there. Yeah, because there's no engineers available, we can't actually do anything, even though we've got a 3rd project space. So I think going forward, we'll make sure we leave 1 engineer alive, I nearly said there. 1 engineer available. Basically, what we'll do going forward is 2 car parts at a time, and then 1 research on the side for the remainder of the season. So next year's car isn't as bad when we start next season. And we actually get a team hub during the next race, which will help things. So there's 2 more races before those car parts come in. The Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix and the Miami Grand Prix will happen before any more further developments, unfortunately. Alas. But as long as we maximise our races and adapt to the conditions as they evolve in those races, we've got 37 points so far because of silly people in races so far, largely. I think Gasly would have been fine for points in all of those races, but Mick obviously wouldn't have been. So, yes, I think we've got far more points than we would have otherwise by being sensible when other people were being silly in the 3 races so far. I imagine that's not going to continue, unfortunately. Do we have a forecast for this race yet? Looks like it's going to be a dry race. It was worth getting. But if you enjoyed this episode, do like, comment, subscribe. It was a wild ride. Until next time, ta-ra.